Hey babies, I hear that we've got a gorilla in the basement. Would you like to take some drinks down and play with some drunken monkeys? I am remembering some old school Pentecostal instruction about how vigilant we must be to manage our sinful nature, to participate with the good Lord in our outgoing process of sanctification. But I want to deliver a little bit better of a report to you so that maybe we can loosen up and enjoy this great salvation instead. Because this is what I've learned, that there is a kind of an agenda here that if Jesus didn't accomplish the job, if there is a little bit left for us to do, there seems to be kind of an agenda in the institution to continually bring us into accountability and dependency on their structures. And I'm not sure we're supposed to be accountable like that. I'm not sure we're supposed to be inside the lines. This life that I am experiencing is outside the lines. It's been proven to me again and again. When I start falling into structures, I mean, that's the reason that I went and jumped out of a plane for the first time back a few years ago, is because it was taking my first step in my religious detox. And it was just so evident to me that all of our doctrines, all of our structures, all of the straight and narrow that we're instructed to stay in the midst of is a false security system. It's a false security. And God delights sometimes. I'm just telling you, babies. He delights sometimes to be the divine trickster and come along and pull that rug right out from underneath you and propel you into a free fall. First steps of a religious detox. So, having said that, I've got to rewind a little bit before my indoctrination into Pentecost, before my indoctrination into fundamentalism. I had a vision, and I hadn't been saved a week. I had my encounter with Christ, and I hadn't been saved a week, and I was quiet with him one morning. And I had this vision, and he took me by the hand, and he was full of cheer. And there was a gaping chasm. There was like this huge mouth of a cave that was in front of me, and he took me by the hand. And I was daunted by the prospect of the darkness, the unknown, the uncertainty, and the mystery. But babies, we're called to embrace mystery and uncertainty. Otherwise, you're not walking a walk of faith. You can see where you're going. You're not walking by faith. You got a lot of structure around you, you may not have heard the gospel because you haven't stepped out in faith. But this yawning chasm was in front of me, and I was daunted. I thought, at the time, I didn't even suspect, well, maybe there's a gorilla down there. Maybe I'll go down there and get walloped. Reminded me of the scene from Empire Strikes Back. Babies, do you remember that? Where Luke Skywalker had to go into that dankness on that swamp planet, into the darkness, and face his fears. And he came across the image of Darth Vader. Major psychological view of Luke Skywalker in that scene. And he flicked out his lightsaber, and he slashed Darth Vader's mask off, and Darth Vader fell down, and it was Luke Skywalker behind the mask. God desires for us to face the fears. And he's got a lot more cheer in doing that than old school Pentecostal preachers talking about the gorilla in the basement. He's got a lot more cheer in doing that than that cranky little lizard Yoda had when Luke came out of that cave. And he was, little lizard shaking his head in disgust as if Luke failed. It's not demonstration of divine love. I don't care what kind of guru you think that little skanky lizard is. That's not gospel. Jesus got cheer. And by that cheer, you can face your worst fears. He took me by the hand in that vision that I had back in the day. He led me into those depths. And I knew that I was embarking on a journey of discovery. And I wasn't fearful. Lo, though I may walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. So what's in you, babies? Seriously. Do you have all manner of the screaming meanies inside of you? If you peel back some layers, are you really fearful that those emotions and those thoughts and the unknown, what lurks inside of you? Seriously, what lurks inside of you? If you've heard the gospel, you've got faith to know that there's a treasure laid up in dark places. If you've heard the gospel, you know that what's in you is Christ. Christ is in you, and He is the hope of glory. And you can risk happening upon a gorilla in the depths. You can bring him some drinks, and you can play with some drunken monkeys. I got some verses written down here. Hang on a minute. Because deep calls to deep. Psalm 42:7. There's a resonance. There's a voice. Do you hear His voice? Jesus said, "My sheep hear my voice and they follow me." And sometimes He goes deep. Sometimes it's dark. Sometimes you don't know where you're going. Sometimes there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of mystery. But deep calls to deep. But His voice is there and He leads you. And who has known the mind of the Lord? Who has known the mind of a man but the spirit of the man that is in him? That's what 2 Corinthians chapter 2 or 11 or something like that. And your spirit is the lamp of the Lord with which He searches out all your inward depths. And He's not slapping on the latex and bending you over for an anal exam either. He's not scrutinizing and showing you the things that are wrong. He's not convicting you in order for you to be aware of all the things inside you that need to change and the therapy and the inner healing processes that you need to go through. He's revealing in you your righteousness. He's revealing in you the righteousness that He bought and paid for. He's revealing in you, by the power of His resurrection, the virtue and comparableness that you have to Him. And there's a verse, I'm going to close with this one first, or it's not first nothing. It's Romans chapter 4, verse 25. And it talks about the resurrection of Jesus. Because when you go into a tomb, when you face your worst fears, when you reckon and calculate in your mind that well, there's sin, and the wages of sin is death, and so if I go into the depths and I experience something overwhelming or dark or dangerous, well, this is the result of my sin, and you calculate in your head. You reason condemnation. You cut that. That's the thinking of the law. If you're under the law, those are your thoughts. If you connect the dots according to the conditioning of these Pentecostal preachers, you're connecting to the dots and you're receiving a ministry of death, because the Bible says that the Spirit gives life, but the Word or law imparts death. And so if that's in your heart and in your mind, you may be daunted from going into the depths and going into the shadow. But I want to tell you that tomb, Jesus has already pierced it. Jesus has penetrated your worst fears. And by His resurrection, He's revealed your virtue. Because it doesn't say that He was raised to justify you in Romans chapter 4, verse 25. It's not something that's accomplished by His going into the depths and doing something, finagling and moving things around and covering things up that shouldn't be seen. He was raised because of your justification. He is raised because you were created to be comparable to Him. He was raised because He knit you together in your mother's womb, and He held your constructs in the deepest places of the earth, Psalm 139. And it's the intention of the gospel for Him to go into that virtue, to go into that dark place, and to reveal treasures in dark places. Because you've got treasures, babies, in dark places. And the adventure of the gospel is that you take Him by the hand, you face your worst fears, and you enter into the divine comedy and understand and realize that it's His delight to reveal in you Christ, the hope of glory. and that you get a good laugh, and you can laugh, and you can drink, and you can play with some drunken monkeys, because he was raised from the tomb. He was raised from your tomb. He was raised from your worst fear. He was raised from your darkness. He was raised from your worst case scenarios. He was raised from your anxieties in order to reveal there was nothing to fear at all, but there's nothing but virtue in there, and that he was raised because of your justification. He was raised from the dead to manifest and to show you your justification. He was raised from the dead to manifest and to show you that he never had a problem with you, that your sin never separated you from himself. Your enemies in your mind, the book of Colossians somewhere, it says the enmity of sin was that you were enemies in your mind, and he has to go into the depths of your psyche in order to reveal that there's no gorilla in the basement, and even if there were, it's a party with a bunch of drunken monkeys. And the war is over. The war in your mind is over. He's made peace. He's destroyed the dividing wall. He's breached your worst fear and entered into it by the tomb that he fell into by the death of Jesus. And he was raised because you are righteous.